In times of cultural chaos and global confusion, I often find myself looking around, whether that's in the media, in literature, in the news, seeking some form of truth, some form of authority that is going to tell me exactly what is happening in this crazy, crazy reality. But over time, obviously, I've realized that I just can't trust any of that. And so I wanted to just go back over some of the essential truths from some of the great masters from India and talk about how we can begin to build a sense of inner authority. That means we aren't dependent on what's happening on the external. We have layers of teachings that came over from the West. Firstly, Sri Ramakrishna and his incredible disciple Vivekananda, and then we had Sri Yukteswar, and of course his incredible disciple Yogananda, who brought the world the autobiography of a yogi. And the masters that came over, they were bearing a similar message that was quite revolutionary at that time, this idea of the universality of all religions. They taught individualism, the power of the individual, and the importance of practice and the importance of discipline. And the different layers of teaching that they each brought over, obviously in particular Vivekananda and Yogananda, who lived in the West, they were based on the kind of cultural context of that time. And as you read through these incredible stories, there are just a few points that I really wanted to pick up on. The first one will go for Vivekananda, who came over initially, and he has a wonderful quote in one of his letters, and it's, "I do not believe in any politics. God and truth are the only politics in the world. Everything else is trash." And so you can see this so often in the West and how we've been taught, this idea of democracy. And I understand the fundamental ideal of democracy, of course, but when we are still, I don't personally believe that there's been any proof that the current authorities are working for our benefit. And when we continually are outsourcing our sense of safety and our sense of direction to these global leaders, I think we can see where it's led us. It's led us to the kind of culture that we have today. And what's, the difference in values to what was preached by these incredible masters compared to what's the underbelly of our political arena. There's such a huge contrast for me, and I know which side feels more truthful. And then we had Yogananda, who wrote, the autobiography of a yogi. And I just recommend this book to everyone and anyone. If you are feeling hemmed in by the limitations of your existence, read this book and read it again and again and again. Because for me, it really blew apart a lot of those restrictions that I had built around what was true and what was not true, and the limited little Western mindset of who we are. And in this book we really get a glimpse into the truth of human potential, and there's no one in politics that is talking about that. So I highly recommend that book. And as I've been reading through these narratives, it created in me a real sense of longing and wistfulness. And I have sat in that for a while, this feeling of wanting to be in the presence of these great masters, wanting to, be in the presence of their certainty and their incredible magnitude and depth. And having sat with that for a while, I've recently been led to Krishnamurti, and he's such an interesting remedy to this longing for external direction, because his message was one of inner authority, and no one else is going to save you but you. And let's see, he really was this modern wave of spirituality that kind of discarded in the end the guru disciple relationship, and for good reason, because the modern version of that in the West was, again, this spiritual authoritarianism, like taking the toxic power dynamics that we see rife throughout our culture and implanting them into this initially very sacred relationship. It was a very devastating time over the past 50 or so years, when we really uncovered in the West the truth of not being able to trust that level of devotion to individuals. And I think Krishnamurti spoke to this really well. Meditation is one of the greatest arts in life, perhaps the greatest, and one cannot possibly learn it from anybody. That is the beauty of it. It has no technique and therefore no authority. When you learn about yourself, watch yourself, watch the way you walk, how you eat, what you say, the gossip, the hate, the jealousy. If you are aware of all that in yourself without any choice, that is part of meditation. So meditation can take place when you are sitting in a bus or walking in the woods full of lights and shadows, or listening to the singing of birds, or looking at the face of your wife or child. I've spent a decade of my life searching for traditions and teachers and practices that were going to help me understand myself and the world around me. And I had the good fortune to come across the tradition of Vanda Scaravelli about 6 years ago now. And Scaravelli was a long-term student and friend of Krishnamurti. And so within the practice itself is this thread of inner authority, is this thread of no method, no instruction, but just an opening out into who you actually are. And so I think this is such a key message for me, and I hope for others too, when we are looking for external direction, whether that be political, social, economic, relational, and even spiritual. Just the importance of coming back into our own inner authority. And the practices that I'm going to teach you through this channel are based on that. It's not a method-based practice of yoga or meditation. I'm offering like a somatic reflections on how to generate feelings of kind of comfort and safety in the body that then allow you to explore what your own internal silence feels like, and from that place begin to build up this inner authority. And it's that inner authority that's ultimately going to help us to remain balanced in amidst the current chaos and confusion that we're all experiencing together. So to round off this talk, if you're still here at the end, well done, and you get this incredible treat because I'm going to read to you a quote from Vanda Scaravelli's Awakening the Spine. The worship of authority, of gurus, priests, teachers, is over. To question authority is a mark of a good mind, unafraid to explore. Is it possible to have a different attitude in which a new intelligence, not imposed by others, but born out of curiosity, attention, and sensitivity will emerge, in which body and mind, fused in one single action, collaborate together? It is just this revolutionary attitude that we are going to discover through a new discipline in the practice of yoga.